The sky above the Pacific shimmered like glass, a perfect blue stretching endlessly, with soft clouds scattered like slow-moving thoughts. Inside Flight 409, the hum of engines wrapped the cabin in a lullaby that promised peace. Most passengers leaned into it, sipping coffee, scrolling phones, or staring blankly into the horizon. But in seat 12F, near the right-hand window, sat a man who didn't quite fit in with the calm. He wasn't restless, just quietly alert. His name, according to the boarding pass, was Ethan Cole, a single father in his mid-30s, brown hair flecked with silver at the temples, eyes that carried too many storms to belong to someone ordinary. Next to him sat a small girl, maybe 6 or 7, with curly hair tied into a messy ponytail, clutching a stuffed rabbit that had lost an ear somewhere in another airport. "Daddy," she whispered. "Are we gonna see Mommy's ocean?" Ethan smiled softly. "Yes, sweetheart. Mommy's ocean." He said it like a promise he'd made long ago, but there was something else in his tone, a shadow that didn't belong to a vacationing father. The flight attendant saw only a tired parent. The other passengers saw nothing at all. But behind that steady composure was a man who hadn't flown commercial in years, not since the incident. The pilot's voice broke through the cabin speaker. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We've reached cruising altitude, 36,000 feet, smooth flying ahead." The usual applause followed. Seatbelts clicked open. Coffee cups appeared. But Ethan's gaze stayed locked on the window, where a distant reflection of sunlight caught the glint of something metallic. For half a second, it looked like a shadow darting past the tail of the plane. Then it was gone. He blinked. "Nothing but clouds now, Daddy." The little girl tugged at his sleeve. "You're squeezing Bunny too tight." He loosened his grip on the stuffed rabbit and smiled again. But his pulse had picked up. Years of training buried deep began to stir, and the calm rhythm of his breathing changed almost imperceptibly. A few rows behind, a teenage boy was live streaming from his phone. "Yo, guys! We're flying over the ocean. This is insane." Then he froze, catching something through the cabin window. A sleek, sharp silhouette slicing across the sky, an F-22 Raptor. The live stream comments exploded. "Bro, that's a fighter jet." "What's it doing there?" "No way, mid-air escort?" The passengers leaned toward the windows, murmuring, pointing. The pilot came over the intercom again, his voice calm but slightly tense now. Folks, please remain seated. We're just in communication with air traffic control." Ethan's eyes narrowed. He looked outside again, and this time he saw it clearly. 2 F-22s flanking the commercial jet at a distance, maintaining formation. It was unusual, not unheard of, but wrong enough to make his instincts flare. He reached down almost unconsciously to touch his right wrist, where a faint scar ran like a white thread under his skin. The kind of scar that doesn't come from an accident, but from a cockpit harness. "Daddy, are those Army planes?" He hesitated. "Yes, baby, they are." "Are they bad guys?" He smiled softly. "Not bad guys, just people who protect us," but protection wasn't what he felt. It was recognition. He turned his head slightly, scanning the aisles. No crew panic, no alarms, just curiosity. Whatever was happening, it was between the sky and the military channel, far beyond what any passenger knew. And then through the faint hum of the engines, something flickered on the radio frequency that only pilots usually hear. A broken static, then a voice. "Sky Command to F-22 Echo 1. Confirm visual on civilian aircraft. Transmitting code for ID verification." Ethan's eyes widened. The voice echoed faintly through the cabin speaker system, like a ghost frequency bleeding into the passenger channel. The captain's voice replied, clipped and uncertain. "Confirming. Civilian Flight 409. No anomalies. Passenger manifest clear." Another burst of static, and then the same cold voice again. "We've picked up a transponder echo from within the civilian jet. It's transmitting an encrypted military call sign. Ghost Falcon." Ethan froze. Every beat of his heart sounded like thunder now. That call sign, he hadn't heard it in 8 years. It wasn't supposed to exist anymore. He'd buried that name, along with the uniform, the mission, the life he once lived. His daughter tugged at his sleeve again. "Daddy, what's wrong?" He forced a breath. "Nothing, sweetheart. Just turbulence." But outside, the F-22s tightened formation. On the fighter radio, the pilots exchanged stunned whispers. "Did he say Ghost Falcon? That can't be right. He's dead." Command, confirm ID. Ghost Falcon was lost in Operation Silent Sky 8 years ago. Silence. Confirmed, came the reply, but his transponder signal just reactivated. He's on that flight. Inside the cabin, Ethan's phone vibrated, a single encrypted message flashing across the screen. We know you're alive. Sit tight. Do not respond. He stared at the message, the world tilting slightly around him. Then slowly he closed the phone, leaned back, and stared out the window. Eyes calm again, but his mind burning with one thought. How did they find me? The hum of Flight 409's engines continued, steady and innocent, as if unaware of the storm building in the sky around it. But inside the cockpit of the F-22 Raptor's flying flank, that calm was an illusion. Eagle 2, you copy? Copy. Radar ping confirmed. That transponder signature matches Ghost Falcon's encrypted frequency. That's impossible. Ghost Falcon's aircraft was destroyed. No survivors. Then explain why it's transmitting from a civilian flight. Silence followed. The kind of silence that stretches long enough to carry disbelief. The pilots didn't speak again. They just looked. Two pairs of eyes locked on the passenger jet gliding across the endless blue. Inside, Ethan Cole was watching too. He'd slipped into the quiet rhythm of someone remembering how to breathe under fire. His eyes tracked the Raptors through the window, gauging formation speed, altitude, and approach angles with the muscle memory of a man who used to command skies, not just sit beneath them. His daughter Lily had fallen asleep on his arm, her stuffed rabbit resting against his chest. For a moment, she looked like peace itself, tiny, innocent, untouched by the ghosts that haunted her father. Ethan gently pulled a blanket over her and whispered, "You're safe, baby girl," but deep down, he wasn't so sure. He opened his phone again, scrolling past the encrypted message until he reached a folder buried under layers of hidden code. He hesitated, then tapped it. The screen flickered, revealing a single symbol. A falcon with silver wings, the emblem of his old squadron. A flood of memories surged back. Desert skies, night missions. A call sign whispered over comms. Ghost Falcon. You're clear. That voice, that trust, that war, and then the betrayal. Back then, Ethan had led an elite experimental wing. Men and women trained for missions the world would never acknowledge. Their call signs weren't names. They were shadows. Ghost Falcon, Iron Wolf, Viper 1, Hawkeye, each sworn to secrecy. Until the day everything went wrong. A classified strike, a double cross, a civilian casualty that shouldn't have happened. Ethan had taken the fall to protect his team. He'd been declared dead after a crash over the North Sea. But in reality, he'd vanished under a different name, leaving everything behind except the memory of that one last mission. And now, 8 years later, someone had found him. A flight attendant passed by, offering coffee. "Sir, coffee?" He smiled politely. "No, thank you." But his hand trembled slightly when he reached for his seatbelt. He could feel the low-frequency pulse of a radar lock, faint but familiar, vibrating through the hull. They were scanning the plane. He exhaled slowly, closed his eyes, and counted. 3, 2, 1. The vibration stopped. Then, over the aircraft intercom, a sudden crackle. "Attention Flight 409, this is U.S. Air Force Command. We are escorting you for security verification. Please maintain current altitude and heading." The passengers stirred nervously. Whispers spread. "What's going on? Why are there fighter jets? Are we in danger?" Ethan could see the fear spreading like wildfire. And part of him wanted to stand up, to reassure them, to step into the role he once held. But that would mean revealing who he really was. Instead, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a small metallic chip, no larger than a coin, worn smooth at the edges. The Falcon insignia glinted faintly in the light. It was the last piece of his old life, the one they never found, the one that could expose everything. Up in the F-22s, the pilots received new orders. Echo 1. Command has verified the signal is embedded in an encrypted beacon. Source unknown but consistent with Ghost Falcon's ID signature. Confirm course of action? Maintain visual. If he activates, we lock on. Lock on? One of the pilots repeated, shocked. "Sir, this is a civilian flight. There are hundreds of passengers on board." "Copy that." Command's orders. "If Ghost Falcon compromises the aircraft, you neutralize." The cockpit fell silent. No one wanted to say it aloud, but both pilots were thinking the same thing. Why would command issue a kill order for a dead man? Back inside Flight 409, the captain stepped out from the cockpit, visibly pale. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice shaking slightly. "Everything is under control. We are cooperating with the Air Force on a standard security check." But Ethan knew better. The Air Force didn't scramble two Raptors for standard checks. They were here because of him. He looked at Lily, still sleeping peacefully beside him, unaware of the invisible guns aimed at the sky above them. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. For the first time since the crash 8 years ago, he felt something he hadn't allowed himself to feel. Fear. Not for himself. For her. Then, without warning, a small tone chirped from his phone, the same encrypted app. Another message flashed. "They think you're rogue. Do not engage. We're working to clear your name." He stared at the message for a long moment, jaw tightening. Then another line appeared. "But if they move first, you know what to do." His fingers hovered above the screen. He could almost feel the weight of his past pressing down again. The soldier, the ghost, the protector, and in that moment, the calm single dad in seat 12F disappeared. The man who replaced him was Ghost Falcon, the pilot who had vanished into history. He whispered under his breath, "If they come for us, I'll finish what they started." Outside, the F-22s adjusted formation again, closer this time, shadows slicing the clouds. The passengers pointed, gasped, recorded with trembling phones. In the lead Raptor, the pilot's voice came over the secure comms. "Command, we're within visual of the subject. Still no activation signal. Maintain eyes. If his beacon reactivates, he's live." "Understood." But then, the radar blinked. A faint pulse emitted from the civilian aircraft. A code string flashed across there. HUD's Ghost Falcon active. The F-22 pilots froze. "Command, the beacon just went live." "Say again." It's broadcasting his full call sign. And in that same second, deep within the belly of Flight 409, Ethan's phone screen flickered, the Falcon symbol burning bright. He closed his eyes and whispered one word into the static. "Copy."